Oh, Ray, we know you have a big family, a lot of grandkids, kids of your own, yourself, your wife. I know you just celebrated a birthday and an anniversary. How are you doing with all this, and what are you doing with your time?
Well, it is nice to be able to see the kids, the grandkids, and but I miss baseball. I mean, obviously, this is let's see, we would be in Cleveland, and off the I think it is scheduled to play the Indians tomorrow night. So, I look at the schedule, and I think everybody involved in baseball is following the Commissioner Manfred. Obviously, the health issues. Want to make sure America stays healthy and all of that. But I think we all miss baseball. I think all of America misses baseball. And Brody, I'm sure you saw, and we'll see if it pans out, that golf is supposedly going to start June 1st to do some events without fans watching them. And I just think live events, regardless of what sport, and obviously would like to think more baseball, would be something that if people are going to be sheltered in place, and that's another story, what's happening around the country. But if they are, I think they would love to see live events. And if somehow baseball can do that without interrupting any other health issues, I think that would be outstanding. But personally, let's see, tomorrow's Tuesday. Whatever day, I'm thinking about how many days, it's almost like our friend Joe Washington. I said, Joe, how you doing? It's like Groundhog Day. And he says, the only day I know that it's true is when the garbage is picked up. So that we know what day it is when garbage is supposed to be picked up because we have it out. But it is a mess around the country, around the world. But let's just hope and pray everything gets back to normal.
We're almost 40 days into no sports entirely. I don't know if you're aware of that. You mentioned sports. Let's put that aside for just a second, Fosse. You have a lot of life experience. You've seen a lot of different things. You've traveled across this country more times than anyone could even imagine. How do you see all of this unfolding from kind of the human perspective?
Well, I think, first of all, I think there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread around. And I don't doubt what the experts are saying, the scientists, et cetera. But the thing that bothers me, Brody, and again, we don't know about this COVID-19, the coronavirus, and how it originated. And, I think we know where we are right now. But I look back at, unfortunately, 9/11. The A's went into New York following 9/11, and that was horrendous. And, baseball was shut down. The world was shut down, but baseball came back, and look what it did for America. I can remember the Mike Piazza home run with the Mets at the time. So, things that have happened, World War II, they played baseball. They used women, but, Ted Williams and Bob Feller, just to name a couple who fought in the war. But nothing has really stopped this country. And that's the thing that bothers me. And let's hope and pray that when whatever does happen, that it is a medical issue and not something other than that, because God forbid that it's more than that, because that would be sad if it is. And I think people can understand what I'm talking about, because, baseball needs to come back. Sports need to come back. People need to get back. And when you shut down an economy, you have over 20 million people who are out of work. That's a lot of people. And, we're seeing it around the sports. We're seeing it, in everyday life where people working 2 or 3 jobs a day just to try to make ends meet. Now they don't have a job. What are they going to do? So I have sympathy and empathy for those people who are out of work. And let's hope and pray that they do come back, that we can get America back. It will come back. It's going to be as strong as ever. I don't have any doubt about that. And maybe my life experience and maybe the time that I've been on this earth, I have seen those things and how strongly America has come back. And I do believe that it will come back stronger than ever.
Agree with you. It's just a matter of how exactly do we get there? What's the time frame? I think everybody wants to jump 3 chapters ahead, but we'll leave that there for now. How about the Oakland A's specifically, Fosse? And I think what is frustrating just from a baseball fan perspective is all the anticipation for 2020, what this team hopefully still can be. How do you describe going into this season, whatever it is, versus going into any other season in Oakland? This almost reminds you of like late 80s maybe.
Well, I was thinking, I'll say something in a moment, but I was thinking about this season, and I think Bob Melvin and Billy Beane and David Force, everybody had said, this is the window that everybody was looking at A.J. Puck, Luzardo, and Manai coming back, and Fires, and Montas. And then you have this, it's a perfect club. And if you think about the 70s, obviously where I played, in the late 80s, where you had championship teams and guys coming back. See, I think that's what's going to be missed. The one thing that I think about, and I was looking back at the 1981 strike, which occurred on June 12th. Baseball came back on July 31st. And then they had the All-Star game, and it was the first half, second half. For those people who may not remember, they can look it up and see exactly. Matter of fact, the A's played the Royals. Royals, I think, had the fourth best record, and the A's, of course, got off that hot start under the new ownership of the Haas family. And they've had that first half, second half, almost like the minor leagues do right now. And unfortunately, the A's lost. But, I think it's going to come back. It's going to be a matter of how it does come back. Will the players and the owners agree? Because we're hearing that players might have to take less money. If it's a shortened schedule, they obviously would have to.
Yeah.
But if it's played in front of empty stadiums, that means the owners don't get revenue from the ticket sales, the promotions. They rely strictly on the television side of it. So is there enough? We don't know. But I think, the Korean Baseball Organization, KBO, they're doing a test now with testing their players. And evidently, if it goes okay, they're going to start May 1st without any people in the stands, but they're going to play baseball. So I think, Brody, to be honest, somebody needs to say, okay, we're going to do it, whether it's a state opening up, a city, a sports team saying we're going to do it. Somebody needs to be on the forefront, because remember, the NBA was shut down under Commissioner Silver. He was the first to stop sports, and then everybody kind of followed suit.
Yeah.
Let's hope that something along those same lines occurs where people come back, or teams do come back. It's going to take somebody to be the one to be up front to do that.
I think it's amazing. Stopping things was relatively easy in retrospect. Restarting things is the tough part. Who would have thought that it would go that way? Strictly from a strategy standpoint, Fosse, let's say the A's can play 100 games in a Major League Baseball shortened season. What becomes really important from a strategy perspective?
I talked to a scout recently about those numbers individually. And you think about that, 62 games they're not going to play. And I've always said that the regular season is the marathon, as they call it. A team can lose 10 in a row. They could win 10 in a row and still be in play for postseason. Mm-hmm. You do that in postseason, you're out of it. But you're looking at players individually. If they get off to a slow start, will they have time to recover? And especially those potential free agents. I think that's one of the concerns. Yeah. But I think from the team standpoint, having a good rotation that the A's have going forward in the five and have an outstanding bullpen, I think they could get off to a good start once baseball does resume, and then catapult them on into postseason. And let's see what happens at that point, whether it would be playing October regular season, November in neutral sites and dome stadiums.
Yep.
I think it may resort to that, but I think it's important that somehow, some way, we get as much baseball in this season as possible. I just heard before we started talking that the college ranks are thinking about playing in the early part of next year. What? The schools are going to be out. How are you going to have students go to football games? So, there's a lot going on, but I hope that the powers to be, and let's hope those people are smart, that they decide that we come back. And if you do come back, and when they do, and I think it's more of when, not if, but when they come back, that the players will agree, and we may have to go through the testing and everything that goes forward with regard to that. But I think it's important that the sports come back. But first and foremost, we have to think about the health of the American people, who are really a lot worse off right now than any professional sports team.
That's well put. Fosse, you mentioned there some of the alternate ways of getting a season done, playing all in Arizona, or maybe Arizona and Florida, and maybe no fans. And there's a lot of things out there on the table. What's one thing that makes you think baseball could return? And on the flip side, what do you think is their biggest hurdle to try and jump over to actually get the wheel moving again?
Well, I'm going to take your second question first, and that would be the players. Because let's say Arizona, and Arizona can accommodate 30 teams, because if you do the math, there are 10 stadiums, and then you have Chase Field, which is a retractable dome.
Right.
So essentially 11. Someone said, it was an agent, not surprising, that you may be able to play triple headers in Chase Field. And you could, because it's artificial surface.
Right.
And you could play 12, 3, 7,
Poor grounds crew.
Like that, or 1, 4, 7. Obviously 6 different teams would be playing.
Right.
But, so there are 26. You have the 10 facilities plus Chase Field, and you do play a triple header. That's 26 teams or 26 teams that are taken care of. The other 4 could be rotated on off day. But the biggest question, Brody, and I don't deal with the heat because I started here. My first AAA game was played at Phoenix Municipal Stadium. I hit a triple in my first at bat, and I was gasping for air. But, they talk about the temperature. This is dry. And say what you want. You can't tell me that in Arlington, Texas, before now they have this retractable dome, which for people, they're sitting there waiting to open. They don't have any team. But let's say that they're playing there. It's been 110 at first pitch at nighttime.
Yeah.
And then you add the humidity on that. So you take the Midwest, the East, the heat and humidity. Don't tell me that it's going to be too hot in Arizona if indeed that's what they decide to do. Because games can be played at night. And I think it's feasible, but I do believe that if they're going to try to quarantine players and everybody associated, that you cannot move out of your hotel room until you get on the bus to go to the park, you get tested. Oh, man, there are a lot of things that have to be done. And I think players should be the ones. But there's also $4 billion in payroll that's out there waiting to be paid to these players. And so there are a lot of things that have to be it's got to be an agreement between the owners, the players. Everybody's got to agree. But I think the players being told you can't move for 4.5 months or whatever it might be, that's going to be a long time.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a mental and a physical test to try and get any of this done. I want to transition into the classic games that we've been showing on NBC Sports California, and we've kind of gone through different time periods and themes, and one of them right now are the back-to-back-to-back World Series champion teams. Now, I know you weren't part of the first one, but just talking about 73 and 74, you realize, Fosse, I'm not old enough to have lived through that. And even people well into their 40s are not necessarily old enough. So what would be the history lesson that you would like to give for people who are watching this for maybe the very first time, start to finish?
Well, everybody's going to think about the New York Yankees. They won 5 consecutive world championships. However, let's not forget that was done with winning the American League. You played the National League. World Series is over about October the 10th. Mm-hmm. Now we're looking sometimes in November. Right. So taking that aside, the A's and the Yankees, the only 2 teams in the history of this great game of baseball, have ever won 3 or more consecutive championships. So that in itself is a history lesson. And so for those like yourself who didn't see that, you're going to be able to see some very, very good teams playing the game the right way. And I've kind of relived these games myself, and I've gone on because you can see the games in their entirety. And it seems like the one thing that comes out more than anything throughout all the games that I've seen is that pitching and better defense. Because you take the 1974 World Series, Brody, there was a 5-game series. We used only 5 pitchers in a 5-game World Series. Think about that. 5 pitchers in a 5-game World Series. 4 of the games were final score of 3-2. The other was 6-2. So you think about pitching and defense, and the Dodgers in that series. Reggie Jackson, I have to say this because Reggie Jackson is known as Mr. October, one of the greatest postseason hitters you'll ever see. But yet when I asked him, I said, as you think back to your career, especially in Oakland, what stands out? He said the 1974 World Series, Game 5, and the people, if they can see this game, they'll see latter part of the game, 8th or 9th inning, where Billy Buckner, God rest his soul, hits a ball to right center. It goes past Billy North. Backing up is Reggie Jackson. He spins, throws to Dick Green, who a blind shot to third base. He just picked it up, caught the ball, turned and threw it to Sal Bando, got Billy Buckner trying to stretch a double into a triple. And Reggie Jackson said, that to me was my most favorite and most memorable play. I'm like, wait a minute. You're Mr. October. You're a home run hitter.
You hit a couple homers,
If you think. But yet he talked about that defensive play as being one that stands out in his mind as being the most memorable for him. So, but I think it's a great history lesson for those who have not seen it. And I look forward to talking to you after you have seen the World Series, because what you're going to see, and I remember when I was traded to the A's before the 73 season, Dick Williams told me, he said this: we do 2 things. We pitch and we catch the ball. And if you do that, and you probably have heard me say that numerous times in my broadcasting career, that if you have good pitching and you have good defense, you're going to win more games than not, because you're never, ever going to outscore teams on a regular basis, especially throughout the course of the season. But if you play solid defense and you have outstanding pitching, and by the way, the A's have both right now, and that's going to enable them to win a lot of games once this does resume. But that's what enabled those teams in the 70s to win 3 consecutive. The confidence to believe that every time they went to the park, they were going to win. And I was part of that. I couldn't believe it. Brody, I came from Cleveland, and we knew on the first day of the season, we're out of it. We're done, ready to go home at the end of the season. We're playing out 162. But when I played for the A's, it was like, we're going to win. I played 143 games in 1973, played in the postseason against the Orioles and the Mets. When the season was over, after catching all those, I said, what happened to the season? because winning gets you that way. It gets you that feeling of you don't feel tired. And I've been on the other side where, you get tired going to the park. Yeah, because you're going to lose. But if you're going to win and you feel you're going to win, you can't wait to get to the park. And that was then. Now you think of guys going to the park at 12 and 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game.
Yeah.
Heck, we took the team bus at 5 o'clock and played at 7:30. So I mean, that's kind of the way it was, the difference. But Brody, it was so much fun to play on this team, just knowing 3 20-game winners in 1973, which is another point for the fans to watch, because 1973, the Oakland A's with Catfish Hunter, Kenny Holtzman, Vida Blue, the last time in the history of baseball there's been 3 20-game winners in the same season.
Jeez.
Now you're lucky to get one in all of baseball.
Exactly.
The A's had 3. They had 3. And as a result, in 74, because of that outstanding pitching staff, Catfish Hunter got us to Game 1 of the World Series by winning Game 4 against the Orioles. Kenny Holtzman started, by the way, just another 20-game winner. So, I mean, and also a very good hitter. And then you bring your closer in, Raleigh Fingers, in the 5th inning, and he pitches 4 1/3. A closer. Tell me about that. And then Catfish Hunter comes in and strikes out Joe Ferguson for the final out in the 1974 Game 1 World Series. He gets a save. So there are 3 pitchers right there in one game. But to think that the next 4 games total, and that's 5-game series, only 5 used. So it's going to be a great history lesson for those who have not seen those championship seasons.
Fosse, I really appreciate this. I know I'm no Glenn Kuiper. In fact, maybe I could get Glenn and you to just sit there and talk, and I'll just sit here and listen for a while. We'll record that if that's
Brody,
up to
anything you want to do, but Kipe's a good man. It's always a pleasure working with him when we have Dallas Braden down on the field, the threesome. It's a great fun thing, and all I can say is I appreciate everything NBC Sports California does for me personally, and it's just tremendous. I know Devin Fox has taken over, and people out of the East Coast, we appreciate everything they are doing. We'll get baseball back, and I think that's the most important thing, that people are going to be able to watch their favorite team, the Oakland A's, whenever they take the field.
Well, we all miss the game, but obviously all that goes with it too. Fosse, you're part of that. Appreciate this, and stay well.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you, Brody.